Okay, so what we're doing today is we're going again through context clues. Today we're going to do something a little different. First of all, we're going to do the assignment so that we're looking at a paragraph that has unfamiliar words in it. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to see that there are different types of context clues, and we're going to talk about two of them today, okay? So a review of context clues. Context clues are where there are things around the sentence that gives clues about an unknown word. The clue here, or the keyword here, is unknown word. Y'all see that?
Yep.
It doesn't mean that there's a word you already know and you just have to write the definition. You need to think, I don't know what this word is. How can I figure it out if someone's not there to help me? Okay? So yesterday, if you did one of those sheets and you knew what the word was that was underlined, you didn't use context clues to help you. Context clues are only about the words that you do not know. Does everybody understand that? So normally it will be the sentence that the word's in, the sentence that comes before it, or the sentence that comes after it that helps you figure out what the context is of that word and helps you figure out the definition. Now, there are a couple of ways that we can look and figure out what a word is based on context clues. The first one is when they give you an example as a context clue. Okay? So it says sometimes specific examples, I'm on the second page now. Sometimes specific examples are used in writing to help readers understand difficult or unknown words. The following words or phrases are indicative. That means that they show this type of context clue, such as, including, consist of, like, or for example. Look at this blue sentence. During a tornado, be aware of potential hazards such as broken glass and sharp objects. It gives you examples of what hazards are, okay? Broken glass and sharp objects are examples of hazards. So broken glass and sharp objects, if those are hazards, what are hazards? Miles?
Dangerous things.
Dangerous things. So it gave us an example. What if I say this? What if I say, at the zoo we saw a lot of different examples of arachnids, such as spiders and ticks. And you don't know what arachnid is. What clues help you figure out what arachnids are? It gave you an example of two arachnids, spiders and ticks, right? What do spiders and ticks have in common?
That they're both arachnids.
They're both arachnids, which means that they... Okay. Say again. Okay. Good. Arachnids are any types of bug that has 8 legs and usually feeds on the blood of its prey. Does everybody understand how we can use examples to figure out what it is? Good. Now the other type of clue is what we call synonyms or definitions as clues. Now these are only the two that we're talking about today. There are other ones too that we're going to talk about later, but for today we're going to talk about these two. So the next one is synonyms or definitions. Sometimes they will give you another word or the definition of the word, and those are the easiest context clues to do. All right? So let's look at the blue sentence here. If you are in a tall building during a tornado, locate the nearest interior enclosure or room to seek shelter. This is the clue. Everybody should have their eyes up here. When you see a comma in the word or after a word that's underlined or bold, it's going to give you the definition or a synonym right afterwards. Okay? So, enclosure or room. So another word for enclosure is, it actually gives you the word. Enclosure or room. Y'all see that? Right after it, it gives you another word that means the same thing. It doesn't matter what it is, if that's the thing you see, an underlined word or a bolded word, and then you see a comma, it's going to give you the definition. It could be even a nonsense word. What if I had this sentence? I like to flubbernuck, or, I know that's kind of small, whatever comes after flubbernuck is going to be the definition of flubbernut. I like to flubbernut or eat candy. So flubbernut means eat. If you see a bolded word or an underlined word and there's a comma in the word or, it's going to give you the definition or a synonym of that word. There's other ways they can do it too. They might say, I like to flubbernut, and then give like parentheses, eat candy. They might say, I like to flubbernut, and then put 2 dashes and go eat candy. So they may do any of those things, but it will tell you what the word means. Those are the easiest context clues, okay? Those are the 2 that we're looking at today. We're going to encounter some of the other ones today besides these 2, but those are 2 main types of context clues that we need to learn. Peyton, you with me? So what we're going to do today is we're going to use some of the skills we used yesterday where we look at a word that's underlined and we figure out what the word means by the stuff that's around it. This is different than yesterday though, because we have a paragraph that we're going to be working on instead of a question that has the answers right under it. So this one, you really can't look at the answers. You shouldn't have done it yesterday either, but this one, you have to think about it before you look at any other sheet. So let's look at the first paragraph. This is called the audition. What we're going to do is we're going to read the paragraphs. We're going to then go back and look at the underlined words, and we're going to write a synonym for the word above it. William, sit down, please. My hands trembled as I walked onto the stage. Even though I felt exhausted, my heart pounded like and fireworks exploded from my chest. So you are going on an audition, and you are getting on stage, right? What would your hands be doing as you walked on the stage if you were about to do something in front of a lot of people? Shook. My hands shook. So what I'm going to do is above the word tremble, I'm going to write the word shook. S-H-O-O-K. And again, I'm going to write a little bit bigger, but yours is probably going to have to fit better to make it smaller. Okay? Now the next part said, even though I felt exhausted, my heart pounded and fireworks exploded from my chest. So exhausted must be the opposite of feeling a lot of action in your chest. We are not knowing the word exhausted and just defining the word exhausted. That's what a lot of you do. You're like, I know what exhausted means. That's not what context clues are about. It's about looking at the context and figuring out what the word means when you don't know it. So Rylan, if it's the opposite of a big, fast beating in your chest, what does exhausted mean? Worn out, tired, slow. So I'm going to put that underneath here, since that has more room. One of the things I do want you to be aware of, though, is that we are not already knowing these words. That's not the point of this. You should not be thinking, I already know this word. You should be thinking, what around the word helps me figure it out? Let's look at the next paragraph. It says, approaching center stage, I attempted to inhale, but the pile of rocks in my throat prevented any air from entering my lungs. There are 3 context clues in that sentence, aren't there? So let's say that we look first at the word inhale. They attempted to inhale, but none of the air went into their lungs. So what were they doing if they attempted to inhale, but the air didn't go in? What does inhale mean?
They tried to breathe in.
Breathe in. And we can use the context of, but the air didn't enter my lungs, to know that inhale means that the air goes in. So that's going to be breathe in. Breathe is spelled B-R-E-A-T-H. What happens if you attempted to breathe in? What were you doing? You attempted to breathe in. What was that, Peyton? You tried to breathe in. But the pile of rocks in my throat prevented any air from entering my lungs. What's that one, Taylor? Stopped. So prevented means stopped. Now I'm going to write on top of this, but you'll have to squeeze it in a little bit with smaller writing, okay? So above prevented, we're going to write stopped. And I know you can't see mine that well. I'm going to move it for you. But you want to type it right over the word of prevented. So prevented means stopped. The next sentence says, I'd lost hours of sleep in anticipation of this moment, and it had finally arrived. I must impress the judges and hit every note with precision and perfection. So let's go back to anticipation. I would say that a lot of you may not know what the word anticipation means. We have to use context clues to figure it out. I'd lost hours of sleep in anticipation of this moment. So what were you doing if you couldn't sleep and you were anticipating this moment? What were you doing?
Thinking about it.
Thinking about it? What were you going to say? Thinking about it, worrying about it. So anticipation must mean like thinking or worry. I'd lost hours of sleep in worry of this moment. I was worried about it. I was thinking about it a lot, right? I was thinking about what would happen. So we can either put for anticipation worry or thinking about. And I know you can't really see that. You can write one or the other. You don't have to do one either, but you don't have to do both. You can do one or the other. What do you think this person's about to do? Are they going to play an instrument? Are they dancing? What do you think they're going to do, Peyton?
They're going to be telling you a speech.
Maybe giving a speech. Anybody else have another idea? Miles, what do you think?
Singing.
Singing. What do you think, Taylor? Maybe dancing. So it seems like the thing that says, I must impress the judges and hit every note with precision and perfection is probably something with music, right? What were you going to say, William?
Like a conductor, like.
Maybe. So let's look. It says, I must impress the judges and hit every note with precision and perfection. What is precision? If you're doing some type of song and every note has to have precision. Perfection, it's almost like that's a synonym clue, right? Perfection, exactness, it has to be exact, it has to be perfect, it has to be accurate. Right? It's like when you're singing and your voice like makes a weird note, that would not be precision. So we can say that precision does mean perfection. We can also say that it says exactness. So you can either write exactness or perfection. And I'm going to move that in just a second. So that's what precision is, either one of those words. And of course, you're going to be writing yours smaller than I'm writing. As you do the rest of this on your own, you are going to get words that you don't know how to pronounce or you don't know how to say them. It doesn't matter. That's what context clues are about. Context clues are about when you're reading on your own and you come to a word that you don't know and you're by yourself, you don't have anybody to ask. So you have to do something to figure it out. So if you get to these words and you're like, I don't know how to say that, just kind of use the word blank. Whatever this word means, I can still figure it out, even though I don't know how to say it. When you're finished doing this for every word, writing a synonym as you read it and use context clues, there are questions. Some of the questions ask you for another word, a synonym. Some of them are going to ask you what words helped you figure that word out. So you have to use what you use for context clue strategies to figure that out. Okay? The last question, if you look here, it's going to give you some of the words and ask you what they mean. You just have to write down the synonym that you came up with, and then you're going to write a sentence with that word. Okay? And that will be at the end. Please make sure that you're being careful and make sure that you are not looking at the answer choices before you write those synonyms, because that's not context clues. You want to make sure that you try to figure it out based on your brain and the context clues that are around it.